My husband kept calling me by my little sister's name, so I started calling him by my ex's name. I had been married to Daniel for 7 years when my younger sister, Allison, moved back to town after her divorce. She needed help, so I asked her to stay with us for a few weeks while she looked for an apartment. Daniel was strangely excited about her moving in. He cleaned the guest room himself, bought brand new sheets, even placed flowers in there. I thought he was just being considerate, but looking back now, the signs were painfully obvious. Can you imagine your husband, after 7 years of marriage, suddenly looking at you and calling you by your sister's name? Not once, not twice, but constantly? It sounds like some sick joke, right? But for me, it was the chilling, heartbreaking beginning of realizing I was losing him to an obsession I couldn't comprehend. It all started the very first night my sister, Allison, stayed with us. We were eating dinner, and Daniel passed me the salt, saying, "Here you go, Allison." I chuckled, people mix up names. But then, literally 5 minutes later, he did it again. He looked right at me and asked Allison if I wanted more wine. My sister gave me this uncomfortable, knowing look. Later, after she'd gone to bed, I asked Daniel what was up. He just shrugged it off, said our names were similar, and I was overreacting. My name is Rebecca. Rebecca. Nothing like Allison. Nothing. The next morning, it got worse. He made breakfast and put Allison's plate in my usual spot. "Oh, that's for Allison," he said, even though she wasn't even awake yet. When she finally came downstairs, he served her first. He remembered exactly how she liked her eggs from just one conversation. But somehow, after 7 years of marriage, he forgot I don't eat bacon. He called me Allison 3 more times that morning alone. It wasn't just mornings, either. When Allison started her new job, Daniel would ask me, "How was Allison's day?" when I walked in the door. Not, "How was your day?" but Allison's, while looking right at me. He'd text me questions meant for her. He even asked me to pick up her specific shampoo brand from the store. When I said, "That's not my shampoo," he just looked confused. "Sorry, Allison. I mean Rebecca." He said my actual name like it was a foreign language to him. Then, at our friend's barbecue, it hit another level. Daniel introduced me to his coworker as Allison. The guy shook my hand. "Nice to meet you, Allison." I corrected him, absolutely mortified, and Daniel just laughed it off. "Oh, he gets us mixed up because we're sisters," he declared. "We look nothing alike. I have brown hair. She's blonde. I'm 5 feet 8 inches. She's 5 feet 2 inches. The co-worker was utterly bewildered, but Daniel kept calling me Allison. For more times at that party, people started noticing. Our friend Jake pulled me aside, genuinely concerned. "Is everything okay?" 2 weeks in, Daniel started comparing us constantly. Allison makes coffee better. Allison folds towels properly. Allison knows how to dress for her body type. But he'd say all this to me, calling me Allison, critiquing Rebecca, like he genuinely didn't know or didn't care which sister was which. Then, during movie night, he sat between us on the couch. Halfway through, he put his arm around me and whispered, "You smell nice, Allison." My stomach dropped. I recoiled, pushing him away. Allison heard everything. That's when she seriously ramped up her apartment search. Daniel seemed to panic about her leaving. He actually told me, again calling me Allison, that I should convince my sister to stay longer. I snapped, "I am your wife, not Allison." He said, "Right, sorry, Rebecca." But 5 seconds later, Allison again. The absolute worst was during intimacy. One night, Daniel was kissing me and he whispered Allison's name. I pushed him away hard. He had the nerve to claim he was thinking about work. What work involves my sister's name? He then accused me of being paranoid, of creating problems. The next morning, he said, "Morning, beautiful," to Allison, then looked at me and just said, "Morning, just morning." I found Daniel's phone open during his lunch break. His recent searches, all Allison's social media, her old college modeling photos, even her ex-husband's LinkedIn. He'd saved 17 photos of her to his phone, some from before she even moved in. Pictures from our wedding where he'd cropped me out and kept only her. For our anniversary dinner reservation, he'd actually written Daniel and Allison, then crossed out Allison and wrote Rebecca. The restaurant host even asked if Allison was coming. Daniel just mumbled, "Maybe next time." That was it. I lost it. I started calling him by my ex-boyfriend Roger's name. "Roger, can you pass the remote?" "Thanks for dinner, Roger." "Roger, your mother called." He got annoyed immediately. "You're being childish," he fumed. I just shrugged. "Oh, I'm just confused. Their names are so similar, Daniel and Roger. Nothing alike, of course, but apparently that didn't matter anymore. At his company dinner, I introduced him to his boss. "This is my husband, Roger." "Sorry, I mean Daniel. I always mix them up." His boss looked genuinely concerned. Daniel's face went crimson. I called him Roger 12 times that night. I even told the CEO's wife how Roger was so dedicated to the company. She asked who Roger was. "Oh, silly me," I chirped. "I meant Daniel. Roger's just this guy I used to know." Daniel pulled me aside, absolutely furious. "You're embarrassing me on purpose," he hissed. I looked him dead in the eye. "Now you know how it feels." The next week, I escalated. I kept it up for 3 days straight. Every morning at breakfast. "Roger, can you pass the coffee?" He'd set the mug down hard, jaw tight, but he handed it over. At dinner, "Thanks for doing the dishes, Roger." Roger this, Roger that. His mother called Tuesday evening, and I cheerfully told her, "Roger will call you back later." Daniel snatched the phone, stomped into the bedroom, slamming the door. I heard him explaining something in a low, hushed voice. When he came out, his face was beet red, and he wouldn't even look at me. Thursday morning, our neighbor stopped us. She wanted to borrow our hedge trimmer. I smiled. "Oh, this is my husband, Roger." The neighbor's eyes darted between us, bewildered. Daniel's face went from red to purple. "My name is Daniel," he gritted out. "Always has been." I just laughed. I always mix those names up. They sound so similar. The neighbor grabbed her trimmer and practically ran. Daniel waited until she was safely inside her house before he exploded. "You are being manipulative and cruel. You're embarrassing me on purpose. This whole thing is toxic and it needs to stop." I leaned against the car, pulled out my phone. I opened my notes app and started scrolling through the list I'd been keeping. 43 times in 3 weeks, Daniel. Date, time, context. Every single instance, you called me Allison. At breakfast, during dinner, in bed, at the barbecue, at his company event. The neighbor almost dropped her hedge trimmer. Daniel's mouth fell open, but no sound came out. Allison found me in the kitchen that afternoon. She closed the door, leaned against it. She looked so small. "I feel terrible about all this," she whispered. "I never wanted to cause problems in your marriage. Maybe I should have just stayed in a hotel." I hugged her. "This isn't your fault, Allie. Daniel made his choices. You've done nothing wrong." But I'd noticed her. She'd been apartment hunting every night instead of watching TV with us, eating breakfast before Daniel woke up, avoiding being alone with him, making excuses or waiting until I was there, whenever he offered to help her. She had 3 viewings scheduled that weekend. Marshall called Friday evening while Daniel was at the gym. He'd heard about the company dinner from mutual friends. "People are talking, Rebecca," he said. Daniel's boss had apparently asked someone if everything was okay at home. Marshall said Daniel's behavior at the barbecue had made everyone uncomfortable. The way he kept calling you Allison. The way he looked at your sister. He said he was glad I was standing up for myself, even if your method is unconventional. We talked for 20 minutes. He offered to come over. I told him I was okay, but appreciated it. When Daniel got home and asked who I'd been talking to, I just said, "Marshall." His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. "What did you talk about?" "The barbecue," I said flatly. He went to take a shower without another word. I started documenting everything in a real notebook. a small journal from the drugstore. Every time he called me Allison. Date, time, exact context, who else was present. Tuesday morning at 7:15, during breakfast, while Allison was still asleep. Thursday at 6:30, watching the news. Saturday afternoon at 2, doing yard work. The list grew. By the end of week 4, I had 37 documented incidents. I counted them, did the math. The pattern wasn't getting better, it was getting worse. Week 1 had 7 incidents. Week 2 had 9. Week 3 had 11. Week 4 had 10 so far, and it was only Saturday. Sunday evening, Daniel came home with flowers. He set them on the counter. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "I'll try harder to get your name right. I know it's bothering you. I don't mean to hurt you." I put the flowers in a vase. We made dinner, sat down to watch a movie. Halfway through, he asked if Allison wanted more popcorn. I was holding the bowl. He was looking right at me. I pointed this out. He claimed he meant to ask if I thought Allison would want some when she came downstairs. She was in her room. 20 minutes later, he commented that Allison looked tired today. I was sitting right next to him. Allison was still upstairs. "What do you mean?" I asked. He got defensive, said he was talking about earlier at dinner. I'd been at work during dinner. Allison had eaten alone with him. He just got up and went to bed early. Monday morning, I found Daniel's phone on the charger while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping, just plugging mine in. His screen lit up with a text from Allison. I picked up his phone, opened their message thread. He'd been texting her directly, asking about her day, how her new job was going, if she needed help moving furniture, making plans to help her pack boxes on Saturday without ever mentioning it to me. The messages themselves were friendly, nothing overtly inappropriate, but the secrecy bothered me more than the content. Why hadn't he told me he was texting my sister? Why make plans without including me? I took screenshots, sent them to myself, deleted the evidence that I'd done so, and put his phone back exactly where it was. Allison came to me Tuesday after work. She showed me her phone, Daniel's messages. She said she'd been keeping her responses brief, professional, but she was so uncomfortable with how often he contacted her. She'd respond with one-word answers or thumbs-up emojis. He'd send 3 or 4 messages for every one of hers. She told me she'd found an apartment, signed the lease that morning, moving out in 2 weeks, way earlier than the original 6-week plan. She looked so relieved when she said it. I hugged her. "I understand, Allie." She said she'd still be in town, we could have lunch every week. But she needed her own space. She needed to not be the reason my marriage was falling apart. I checked our credit card statements. Wednesday night, Daniel asleep, next to me. $347 in purchases I didn't recognize. Expensive coffee from a fancy store downtown, the kind Allison had mentioned she liked once. New towels for the guest room, in the exact color she'd said was pretty. A gift card to her favorite clothing store. Bath products in her preferred scent. All charged to our joint card. All specifically for her. I took screenshots, added them to a folder on my phone labeled Evidence. I went to sleep with my back to Daniel. Thursday morning, I confronted him at breakfast, showed him the credit card statements, explained $300 in purchases for my sister, Daniel. He said he was just being a good host. She was going through a divorce. He wanted her to feel welcome. I asked why he needed to buy her expensive gifts when she was only staying a few weeks. He called me paranoid and jealous, making something innocent into something ugly. I pointed out he'd forgotten our anniversary last month. Didn't buy me flowers, didn't make a reservation. Forgot completely until I mentioned it 2 days later. But you remembered Allison's favorite coffee brand after one conversation. He said that wasn't fair. "No," I said. "It shows exactly where your priorities are." He left for work without finishing his breakfast. I spent the weekend avoiding him, staying in the guest room. Saturday morning, he found me making coffee. We need to talk, he said. He suggested marriage counseling. The words tumbled out fast, like he'd been practicing. I looked at him, standing there in his wrinkled shirt, messy hair. He probably thought a counselor would take his side, tell me I was crazy and jealous, making problems out of nothing. Yes, I said immediately. Daniel looked surprised. I wanted a professional to hear how often he called me by my sister's name. I wanted an objective witness. We sat at the kitchen table. He found a counselor, Portia Frost, online. Good reviews, an opening next week. He made the appointment, his hands shaking a little as he typed. Tuesday at 4 o'clock. This will help us work through things, he said. I didn't respond. Just took my coffee back to the guest room. Tuesday afternoon, I pulled out my notebook. 37 times in 4 weeks. Dated each incident, noted the context, what we were doing, who else was present. I put the notebook in my purse. Daniel came home, changed into nicer clothes. We drove to Portia's office in silence. Beige walls, comfortable chairs. Portia, mid-50s with gray hair, calm expression, gestured us to the couch, asked us why we were there. Daniel started talking about communication issues, how my sister moving and had created some tension. He made it sound so normal. Portia turned to me. Your perspective, Rebecca? I pulled out the notebook. I started reading. The first 10 incidents. Dates, contexts, the pattern. Daniel's face went pale. I kept reading. 15 incidents. 20. 37 total in 4 weeks. Portia's expression changed. Her eyebrows pulled together. She leaned forward. Is this accurate, Daniel? He nodded slowly, barely audible. I hadn't realized it was that many. Portia wrote something in her notepad. Daniel, she asked directly, why do you think you keep using Allison's name? He stumbled, mumbled about stressful work, names sounding similar, being distracted. Portia put down her pen. Rebecca and Allison sound nothing alike, Daniel. Different syllables, different sounds, no overlap. What about work stress would cause you to repeatedly call your wife by her sister's name? He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. I don't know. I just get mixed up sometimes. She asked if he mixed up other people's names. Family members, co-workers, friends? He shook his head. Just mine and Allison's. Portia made another note. The session lasted 50 minutes. Homework. Daniel needed to catch himself, correct immediately, acknowledge it. We scheduled another appointment. We drove home in silence. Daniel barely spoke that night. Sat on the couch staring at the TV, not watching. I made dinner. We ate separately. Later he came to bed. I pretended to be asleep. He moved closer, put his hand on my shoulder, started kissing my neck. I stayed still. He kept going. His hand moved down my side. Then he whispered it. Allison. Soft against my ear. I pushed him away hard. Sat up, snapped on the lamp. Daniel's face crumpled. He started crying, actually crying. I don't know what's wrong with me, he sobbed. I don't understand why I keep doing it. His shoulders shook. I got out of bed, went back to the guest room, locked the door behind me. Saturday morning, Allison's moving day. I'd barely slept. Daniel was already dressed. Took the day off. Allison's truck pulled up. Daniel practically ran out, a huge smile, the first real one I'd seen in days. He greeted her, grabbed boxes, carried them 2 at a time, joked about her stuff. Allison laughed, that easy laugh. Daniel lit up every time she did. They worked together, loading the truck. He knew exactly where each box should go, organized everything perfectly, talked about the best route, unpacking help. I stood in the doorway, holding one small box, watching my husband show more energy, more enthusiasm than he'd shown me in months. More than for our anniversary, more than for anything involving us. The truck filled. Daniel closed the back door. I'll follow you, he told Allison. Help you unload. I said I wasn't coming. Had things to do here. Daniel barely looked at me, just nodded, got in his car. I watched them drive away. Stood there in the empty driveway, feeling like a stranger, like someone visiting their own life from the outside. The house was quieter but not peaceful. Daniel came home exhausted that evening. The apartment was small but nice. Allison seemed happy. Then he started. Do you think it's too small? Can she afford it? Does she have enough furniture? Will she be lonely? He went on for 20 minutes. Every sentence about Allison. Her needs. Should we check on her? I made dinner, set the table. He kept going. Maybe we should invite her for dinner next week, make sure she's settling in. I put down my fork. Allison is fine, Daniel. She's a grown woman who's been married before. She can handle living alone. He looked hurt. I'm just being concerned. You're obsessed. He denied it, but the next morning he brought her up again. That afternoon, before bed, Tuesday night, I woke up to light from the hallway. 2 a.m. I found Daniel on the couch, his phone lighting up his face. Allison's social media. He was scrolling, stopping, zooming in. What are you doing? I asked. He jumped, nearly dropped the phone. Just checking she was okay. Making sure she'd posted recently so I knew she was safe. I pointed out, checking someone's social media at 2 a.m. isn't normal concern. That's obsession. He got defensive, called me overreacting, but his hands were shaking. He closed the app, went to bed. I stayed on the couch, staring at the dark ceiling. This behavior was getting scary now. Not just hurtful. Actually scary. Marshall showed up Wednesday afternoon with coffee. Been worried since the company dinner, he said. Wanted to check in. I told him everything. Counseling, the notebook, the moving day, the 2 a.m. scrolling. He listened without interrupting. Then he said, gently, Rebecca, Daniel might need individual therapy. Not just marriage counseling. This level of focus on one person, it's not normal. It's not healthy. He mentioned his brother, an unhealthy attachment to a coworker, needing professional help. It took months of therapy, but he eventually got better. I nodded. Something in my chest loosened. Having someone else say it wasn't normal made me feel less crazy. That night, I told Daniel, you need to see a therapist on your own. Not just our marriage counselor. Someone who can help you figure out why you're so focused on my sister. He started to argue. I'm not obsessed. I cut him off. If you don't make an appointment by Friday, I'm moving out. Temporarily. I'm going to stay with Marshall until you get help. His face went white. Are you serious? Completely serious, Daniel. I can't live like this anymore. I can't be in a marriage where my husband is more concerned about my sister than me, where he calls me by her name during intimate moments, where he checks her social media at 2 a.m. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. Okay, he finally said. I'll find a therapist. I'll make an appointment. He looked genuinely scared, like he was just now realizing I might actually leave. Daniel found a therapist Thursday morning, someone Portia recommended. Appointment for the following week. He started going twice a week. After a month, Portia asked us both to come to one of her sessions. Daniel had made some progress. We sat in her office. Portia asked Daniel to share. He took a breath. He'd been comparing me to Allison constantly. Not just names. Everything. How we looked, acted, what we were good at. He felt guilty. Knew it wasn't fair. Knew it was damaging our marriage. It was the first time he'd been truly honest. Admitted what he was doing instead of making excuses. But when Portia asked why it started, he couldn't explain. Just, I don't know. Couldn't pinpoint when or why Allison became such a focus. I sat there listening. Tired. Tired of being second choice. Tired of fighting for his attention. Tired of wondering if this would ever really get better. I wrote out my boundaries that night. 3 rules. No contacting Allison without telling me first. No looking at her social media. Correct himself immediately every time he used the wrong name. Daniel sat across from me, reading my list. He nodded slowly. I can do that. I will try harder. The first week, he broke all 3 rules twice. Texted Allison about assembling furniture. Checked her Instagram at lunch. Called me Allison asking about dinner. Then just kept talking. I showed him the list. Reminded him about the immediate correction part. He apologized. It's harder than I thought. Breaking 7 years of habits. I pointed out, you've only been obsessed with my sister for 2 months, Daniel. What 7-year habit are you talking about? He went quiet. The second week was slightly better. He told me before texting Allison about a package. Caught himself calling me Allison, corrected it. But I still found his phone open to her Facebook profile. He said he was just making sure she was settling in. Why do you need to check her photos to know that? No answer. 3 weeks after she moved out, Allison texted. Lunch. Just us. No Daniel. We met at a cafe. She looked good, less stressed. She started apologizing again before our food even arrived. I feel terrible about everything. Daniel's behavior. The strain on your marriage. I cut her off. For the 100th time, Allie, none of this is your fault. You didn't ask him to obsess over you. You didn't encourage his behavior. You were just existing and he made it weird. Her eyes welled up. I just keep thinking if I'd stayed in a hotel, none of this would have happened. I grabbed her hand. You're my sister. I wanted to help you. Daniel's issues are his to fix, not yours to prevent. We talked for 2 hours. Her new job, her apartment, dating again. It felt normal. We hugged goodbye in the parking lot. It felt right, like we were rebuilding something separate from all the marriage problems. 3 months passed. Daniel was down to calling me Allison once or twice a week. Progress, technically, but still not normal. Still not what a marriage should be. I watched him catch himself mid-sentence. Saw the concentration on his face when he said my actual name. Like he had to actively remember who I was, who he married. It exhausted me. The constant monitoring. Checking if he'd looked at Allison's social media. Listening for him to slip up. Wondering if this was just who we were now. A husband who had to work not to call his wife by her sister's name. A wife who had to police her husband's every word and action. I lay awake some nights, trying to decide if I could live like this forever. If this counted as a marriage worth saving. He was trying, going to therapy, following most of the boundaries, most of the time. But trying shouldn't be this hard. Saying your wife's name correctly shouldn't require active effort after 7 years together. Portia scheduled an extra session. Long-term planning. We sat in her office, those same beige walls, same comfortable chairs that had witnessed months of our problems. She pulled out a folder. A structured plan. Continued therapy for both of us. Monthly check-ins about boundaries and progress. Honest conversations. About expectations. She looked at us serious. Your marriage has permanent damage, Rebecca. Some of that damage might never fully heal. She asked if we understood what that meant. Daniel shifted. I understand. I'll keep working on it. I nodded. I understand, too. Portia asked how I felt about staying in the marriage, knowing it might never be completely repaired. I thought about it. Really thought. Then I said I was cautiously hopeful, but realistic. I knew some broken trust couldn't be completely fixed. But I was okay taking things one day at a time, keeping my options open, not committing to forever, when forever felt impossible to promise. Daniel reached for my hand. I let him take it, but I didn't squeeze back. This whole experience, it changed me, it changed us. I'm still figuring out what it all means for my future. Have any of you ever faced a betrayal or a situation where you had to reevaluate everything you thought you knew about your partner? What would you have done in my place? I'd really love to hear your thoughts, your advice, or just your experiences in the comments below.